Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to a new session here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate having you with us. And our featured guest coming up this time is Eileen McKusick. Eileen Day McKusick, MA, is a researcher, writer, inventor, practitioner, educator, and speaker on the effects of audible sound on the human body and biofield. Eileen is the founder of the sound therapy method biofield tuning, the inventor of the sonic slider tuning fork, and the author of the books Tuning the Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy, and the new release, Electric Body, Electric Health. Eileen, welcome.
Hi, Alec. Thanks so much. Great to be here. Hi, everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining us. The last time we spoke, I believe you were still in Jamaica. You're back now, getting settled into life in the States here?
Yeah, I was in Jamaica for almost all of 2020. And had the good fortune of writing my book there. So I got to write a book about electric health while I was sitting with my feet in the sand and taking breaks, going in the ocean, doing all those things to raise voltage. So it was great to be there then. But I also love being here in Vermont, especially in the summer. So happy to be home in the States.
Right on. Well, welcome back. But that does sound like a great place to ride out the strange days that found us in 2020 and to get some writing done. So that's the other new development. Congratulations on the release of the new book.
Thank you.
And look forward to talking about some of the new expressions of your ideas as we flow along. But to get us rolling, I was hoping we could just maybe wind back in time a few beats, because I mean, one of the things that I really admire about your work is that while you have done lots of research and study, which you express really well in the books, the essence of what you do was conceived via direct experience and observation from working with doing thousands of hands-on sessions with clients over many years. So to get us rolling, mainly for the benefit of people who might be hearing about your work for the first time, would you like to tell us about those early years and the develop and experiences that led you on this path to develop the biofield tuning method?
Sure. Well, I'm one of those people who's just very curious and a researcher by nature. And I love to read and I love to learn. And when I was 18, I found an interest in health and human potential, science and spirituality, very much a seeker, coming from a place of very poor health, very poor physical, mental, and emotional health, and on a quest to better understand what it means to be a healthy and free human. And that has always been my mission, very selfish mission, actually, to get myself as healthy as I possibly can be. And one of my favorite definitions of health is simply freedom. Freedom from pain, freedom from struggle, freedom from unnecessary drama, freedom from debt, freedom from the mental slavery that so many of us are consciously and unconsciously bound by. And for me, it manifested as an eating disorder. I became bulimic when I was 17. And when I was 18, I tried to stop and I couldn't. And I realized that I had become an addict. And so I set about figuring out how to overcome that condition. And in the process of doing the research for my own healing, I discovered that I really did have a passion for this field and that I wanted to understand it better. I thought that maybe I would go to school to become a naturopath, but I didn't go to college right out of high school. And, going into naturopathy school felt like 12 years of higher education, and I didn't want to expend that time and energy. So I started my career in holistic health as a massage therapist. I thought that was just a good place to start. And at the time, I actually owned a very busy restaurant. But I had discovered from a number of years in the restaurant business that it's not the healthiest business to be in. In fact, for me, it didn't support my health at all. And so I started to sort of back out of that and enter into massage. And I was just doing it part-time. I knew I didn't want to be a massage therapist, that it was just a leaping off point. So I became interested in vibrational healing. I read the book Quantum Healing by Deepak Chopra and really got introduced for the first time to the idea that everything is vibration, that our appearance of solidity of our body, of things in life, is simply an artifact of our perception. And that really all of creation, including ourselves, are simply packets of vibrating information. And so treating vibration with vibration seemed very sensible and logical to me. And that's the way my brain works. I'm very logical, I'm very analytical. And there was a real appeal in that. And so I found every book I could find on the use of color and sound and music and different healing CDs. And then I got a set of tuning forks that I found in a catalog. And I started to play with them with my massage therapy clients. And right off the bat, the tuning forks did not behave the way I thought that they were going to. Like, they really surprised me. And in fact, it led me on a journey that surprised me over and over and over again. And in some ways, even it's been 25 years now. I actually picked up that first set of tuning forks in May of 1996. So it's 25 years now. And I never put the forks down. I used them every week, for 25 years. I had a very, very busy practice. So what started off as just experimentation and observation, I would say that the practice or the method that we now call biofield tuning, in a way, sort of created itself, because I didn't set out to create a sound therapy method. I certainly didn't set out to really not discover, but the field was already there. The field of the science of the biofield, was already going on. But what I ended up needing to do in order to do this work was to understand how and why sound helps us to feel better. Because right off the bat, when I had no idea what I was doing, my clients said that they felt better after a tuning fork session. And then they started asking for it, and they're like, do that sound thing again. And so in very short order, my massage practice turned into a sound therapy practice. And I made interesting discoveries that sort of form the basis of what biofield tuning is. So one was that I thought that if I had a tuning fork that produced this note of C, that if I activated that tuning fork and I held it over the body, that it was going to sound like a C. And what I discovered was that that was not the case at all. What I thought was going to be an objective input became a conversation between the vibrations coming off the body and the overtones and undertones of the fork. And so depending on where I held the fork around the body, it would make different sounds. It would be like sharp or flat. Sometimes it would get very loud. Other times it would go completely silent right away, like it was sucked into the body. Sometimes it would sound full of static. If I held it over a place where someone had pain, and I'll never forget the first time this happened, someone had a lot of pain in their shoulder. And when I held the fork over it, the fork went really sharp and really loud. And the person was like, oh my God, that's how my shoulder feels, like sharp, intense pain. So I kept activating the fork and holding it over that area. And the tone modulated, it changed. It came down into sounding more like a natural C and less like this really intensified C sharp. When the person got off the table, they rotated their shoulder and were astonished to discover that all their pain was gone. So this idea that the body is an acoustic instrument that is designed to be in tune, and that the body will use an input as simple as a tuning fork, a simple tone generator, actually provides like a mirror or a biofeedback process for the body to hear itself, to hear when it's out of tune or off rhythm, and then to use that input to adjust, to bring itself back into a state of harmony. And that's just consistent with everybody. And it was so astonishing. It was absolutely something that I didn't expect. Then the other part that I discovered that was also very odd was that sometimes I'd be, combing around people's bodies, just kind of exploring over them. And I'd find places where it would get loud. Like I might find something really loud, like right over somebody's right hip bone. And I remember thinking, well, if it's going to sound loud anywhere, it should sound loud at the chakra, the energy center, right? If there's an energy center in the midline of the body, that's probably where energy should be concentrated. And I made the very strange observation that I could stick a fork in these loud spots and I could actually drag them along like a stylus, like a magnetic stylus dragging iron filings. And I would bring it back to the midline of the body or where I thought that there was a chakra. And it would feel like it dropped in, and then it wouldn't be loud over here anymore, and it would be loud here. And then people would say, wow, I feel much more centered and balanced. And so I developed a little practice of just finding loud spots and dragging them to the center, called it click, drag, and drop, because that was really what was happening. And I did this for years. I did it for 10 years as a hobby. But, Alec, in Connecticut, where I lived at the time in the 90s, when I told people I was doing sound healing with tuning forks, they all thought I was nuts. People were like, sound healing, I've never heard of that. It's very dismissive and skeptical. Things sure have changed in 25 years. I know like most people have heard of sound healing at this point, but for a long time, it was a tough row to hoe because there was so much skepticism from people. So much so that it actually drove me to go to college as an adult. I did finally get degrees, and I ended up writing a master's thesis in 2011 called Exploring the Effects of Audible Sound on the Human Body and its Biofield. And I came to a scientific understanding of what was happening while I was working, because it was such a mystery for so long. And it really required a deep dive of research in order to grasp it and to be able to explain it to people from a very simple and understandable scientific perspective. So that's what I do in Tuning the Human Biofield. And also I go kind of deeper into that in Electric Body, Electric Health.
That was a brilliantly concise overview. Thank you for that. So you expanded on that over the course of 2 books. So that was a beautiful nutshell. Yeah, and that's a trip. Because we'd probably spend the rest of the day talking about, well, how does this work? What are the actual mechanisms that underlie it? But it just does work, the drag and drop. That is interesting, because that's what I was talking about. Your work was informed by experience and direct observation, and most importantly, results, not just mental plane debate.
Well, and that's the thing that was really the driver, Alec, was the results that I was getting. Because what happened, that kind of switched things up for me and made me choose to go from doing it part-time to doing it full-time was that I started to discover information and like those loud spots off the body, in the atmosphere around the body. And when I started moving loud spots from 3 feet away back into the middle, or up to 6 feet away, my therapeutic outcomes became dramatic. And I realized that, this is the kind of healing that people are really looking for. I had people who had massive anxiety disorders resolve in just a few sessions. People that had pain for 30 years disappeared in 1 session. What I was getting reported to me was just astonishing. And, I was still kind of like, for a really long time, I'll tell you what, I did this work for 15 years, this moving sound around in the field, and it seemed so weird to me. I was like, this is so weird. Like, what am I even doing? How is this working? Am I really helping people? Am I making this up? It just seemed so strange. And now we have thousands of practitioners around the world. So, it's a very easy practice to learn. It's very simple, and it can produce incredibly profound results for people physically, mentally, emotionally, ancestrally, relationally. It works on a lot of different levels, which is why my practice became so busy, because People would come to me with problems, and it didn't matter whether it was an issue with the way that they were thinking or the way that they were feeling emotionally or physically. The sound seemed to be able to get in and to work on every level, and bringing what I now understand to be the body's electrical system into order was really what was key here. And this opened up my eyes to the fact that we have an electrical system in its entirety that we never really learn about, and that we're essentially electrical organisms in an electric environment. And when we learn to take care of our electric health, everything gets so much easier. Most people are out there trying to take care of their chemical and their mechanical health through things like diet, supplements, pills, that sort of thing. But what really ails us is mostly emotional stress. And that all shows up in our electrical system, and that all responds beautifully to sound.
Yes, and that's, once again, the results speak for themselves, and those patterns of emotion that are stuck in the field. So I think I've also heard you say that, the initial emotional impulses comes and goes in like 90 seconds, but it's just how it gets encoded and stuck. That's what becomes the problem, yes?
Absolutely, because most of us were taught an abstinence-only approach to emotions. One of the questions that I ask in classes and groups is, how many of your parents modeled effective emotional management? I don't think anyone has ever raised their hands. I think that we grew up seeing our parents engage in, either suppression or explosion, or practice that I call stuff and blow, where you stuff it and stuff it and stuff it till you can't take it anymore, and then you just explode disproportionately to whatever is going on, and then get pushed back as a consequence. And so, women are told, well, maybe it's okay if you cry, and boys, it's okay if you get angry, but we're really not taught about emotional intelligence and emotional management. And so most of us, myself included, just end up stuffing them. And whether you stuff them with food or overwork or booze or pills or codependent relationships or whatever it is you're doing, your emotions are part of your feeling system. So just like, you're not going to hold your hand in a fire because you know that it's hot. You feel it's hot, your body goes, move away. Our emotions are very much the same kind of guidance system to keep us healthy. And if we are always suppressing our emotions, we're suppressing those messages that are like, hey, move in this way, or get away from that person. They don't have, they don't respect boundaries at all. They're always making you angry. We're self-supporting organisms designed to stay healthy, and emotions are a big part of that. But if we don't know what to do with them, we don't know how to allow them, we stuff them, and then they just end up stuck. We end up sort of surrounded by a mountain of unexpressed, undigested, unintegrated emotions, usually in a position in our life that doesn't serve us because we didn't heed the messages that we were getting.
And those get encoded as constructs in the electromagnetic field. And I want to come back to talk a little more specifically about how tuning forks and sound can address and move those. But I want to take a slight detour back into the mental plane. So, a couple important concepts that inform your work are the concepts of ether and plasma. Would you say those are relevant to how these patterns are stored in our field?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my quest to understand biofield tuning, that I very sort of like a blind fumble with moments of flashes of illumination, and this whole way of understanding the body and the mind and the field, and our spirit, our soul, sort of revealed itself to me. What I discovered, and actually what was a key discovery, was discovering two more states of matter beyond what we're taught about. So most of us learn about solid, liquid, and gas, but there are two additional states of matter that are not part of our education. And one of them is plasma, which is essentially the flow of electricity. It's really what it is. It's just the flow of charged particles. So our sun is a plasma, the solar wind is a plasma, our atmosphere, even just the space around us, this is all a plasma. It's all electrically charged. Really, everything begins as plasma and condenses into solid form. Really, everything is just condensed light. And it is the electric body, so anything that has an electric current running through it has a magnetic field around it. And so living organisms that have an electric current have a bioplasmic or it's sort of like almost like a fluid magnetic substance is what comprises our body's energy field. And so understanding about our own electric bodies is really important, but also understanding that we are living in an electric environment. When I discovered electric universe theory, it states that electricity, not gravity, is the dominant force in space, and that all cosmic phenomena can be understood and explained through the lens of electricity. And this is something that's very much missing from our current cosmological story. Our current cosmological story is one of an empty vacuum of space, where the sun is a thermonuclear furnace, isolated, burning itself out, and that sound doesn't travel through space, and that everything is kind of like gravity driven and billiard ball and winding down. And, entropy is happening everywhere. And so we all walk around with like black holes devouring light and mysterious dark energy and dark matter and entropy. And it's all a very dark, dismal, depressing cosmology that informs us from a background perspective actually more than we realize it does. When I discovered electric universe theory, I learned that all of that is wrong. That space is not an empty vacuum. It's filled with plasma of all kinds of densities. That sound does travel through space. It travels through plasma. They're called Alfvén waves. So, and that it's teeming with aliveness and interconnectedness, that everything is connected, that ropes of electric current connect all the galaxies and even our planets to the sun. Like there's a whole living electrical organism that the universe is, and the same light, the same electricity that powers the stars that is in all of nature is the same light that's in us. And it's all one light. And that's science. That's not just spirituality. That is the biological reality of how we and all of creation are built. And we're all connected at that level of light. Then the next state of matter is ether, which is sometimes called the quantum vacuum. It's been called the Higgs field. It's got a lot of different names. I prefer the classical term, ether. And that is that it's the medium. It's the ocean of clear light that all waves arise in and that all form arises from and then dissolves back into. It's the essential unified nature of all of creation that the explicate reality arises from. And that in its implicate reality and its unexpressed wholeness contains everything that ever is, was, or will ever be. And time flows through the ether, so it's outside of time. It could also be called the Akasha or the Akashic record because it holds the information of everything that has ever sprung from creation or ever will. And so it's through the ether that we conduct this work at a distance. It's through the process of resonance in the ether that I'm able to do distance sessions, which I'll tell you, Alec, I didn't believe were possible. People asked me for years if I could do this work at a distance, and I thought it was ridiculous. I was like, no, duh. Sound waves on the body, like this is physics. I don't do it at a distance. And most people feel that way about distance sessions, right? And I was very arrogant about it until I tried it. And I was able to do it incredibly successfully. I was able to read the biofield in the way that I've learned how to do. I mapped it, I decoded the language of vibration. For me, reading your biofield is like reading your life, and I can tell you all about personality of your parents and where in your body you have inflammation and what ages you had difficulty and where you moved and how your first relations, like all of that is encoded vibrationally in your field. And my work has been to map the field to find where very specific memories lie in the field and to modulate our memories and our life experience. So I was able to do all of that in my first distance session. And I had to eat crow. Afterwards, I had to be like, yeah, I can't do this at a distance. Actually, I was wrong. And it's through the ether. The ether is the way that I understand that because everything is connected. And if I'm going to do a distance session on you, it's sort of like plucking a file out of, Google Drive off, off or out of the cloud that I can pluck your file and put it on my table and I can work on it. And that's just the way it works. And again, I've trained thousands of people to do it. This hypothesis has been tested hundreds of thousands of times, if not millions of times at this point, and the outcome is always consistent. Therefore, there has to be a law of nature that supports it. That's all there is to it. And to me, ether is that medium that this is working through. So those are the two states of matter. And that's part, honestly, of what makes biofield tuning hard to describe to people because we are operating in a different cosmological story. Most people are living in the world of vacuum, solid, liquid, and gas. We're living in a life that's teeming with electricity and in an ether medium. And so many more things are possible when you add in two more states of matter. I'll tell you what, the problems that I tried really hard to solve for many years in my life, my energy was low, my health was poor, my spirits were low, kind of a chronic low-level depression, digestive misery. It wasn't until I discovered plasma, came to understand the electric nature of life, and then actually started getting tuned by students that I trained, that I started to be able to solve those problems. And they're typical problems. Like I was broke, I was in debt, I was fighting with my husband, my kids were driving me crazy, my fuse was short, all those things that so many of us suffer from that I was trying valiantly to fix from the world of solid, liquid, and gas. And I didn't. It took, and not only do we introduce two additional states of matter, but also two additional forces of nature that we don't learn about. And so one of those is syntropy. So we all learn about entropy. Oh yeah, everything falls apart. It's all going down. Syntropy is the force that brings things together, that creates us, that I grow a baby in my belly. That's syntropy. That a body heals. That's syntropy. Anything coming together and being organized, coming into being is the syntropic force. Do you know what science calls that? Which I think is really weird. It's called negative entropy. It's so ridiculous. So I won't even use that term actually because it's so ridiculous. I had to find another word, and somebody coined that term in the 70s, and I'm like, okay, I can use that word. To me, that's a really good example of just how weird academic science is, that you would take the most miraculous thing in all of creation, the fact that anything comes into being at all, and call it negative entropy. So odd. And then there's levity. So we learn about gravity, like gravity's pushing us down, right? Making us fall apart. And that's what most people are living. They're feeling pushed down. They're feeling like they're going under. So many people feel this way right now. So if all you know about is gravity and entropy, you're going to be a victim of those forces, solid, liquid, and gas, right? But levity is a thing. And actually sound waves produce levity. Sound waves fall upwards. If you've ever listened to like a steel drum band, what happens? Your body starts doing this, starts going up and down, right? That sound, those sound waves lift you. In fact, we can receive the negative charge from the surface of the earth. You get out barefoot and you ground. You pull up that levity, that force that wants to go upward, right? So understanding levity and syntropy and plasma and ether gives you so many more things to work with to help get yourself back in order and get healthy.
That is all outstanding. Once again, thank you. That was a great nutshell. Is there are in the new book, there's a couple great chapters where Eileen talks about the concepts of ether and plasma in more depth. But I think you just nailed it there as the quick nutshell, because it's exciting. And back to the original broad stroke, it's just a much more inspiring conception of the universe as opposed to the old classical space is a cold, dead void of silence. But no, it's vibrantly pulsing with energy and living connections. It's the more exciting framework to exist in. Bless it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So coming back to actual sounds and tuning forks, do you have any tuning forks on hand that you could demonstrate and share a little sound experience with us?
Yeah, yeah. So, a lot of times what I do is I play with audible forks, and I have you listen to particular sounds. But I thought we'd do a little experiment today because I like experiments and work with inaudible sound. So, what I have here are two tuning forks. Actually, this is the very first tuning fork I ever created on my own, because I used other people's sets, and then I got hip to the Schumann resonance. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Schumann resonance, it is the background electromagnetic pulse within our atmosphere. And it is on average, it's around 7.83 hertz, and that's cycles per second. And it's created by all of the electrical activity. So all the lightning storms, all of the discharge, right? The sun, the solar wind, right, is a stream of electrically charged particles that builds up on our upper atmosphere, on our magnetosphere, and gets fully charged, and then that starts to discharge. And so the Earth is negatively charged, the sun is positively charged, and there's this whole electrical interaction that's constantly going on within our atmosphere. Now, what's interesting is that frequency, it also correlates to our brain waves. So we have different stages of brain waves, very low delta ones, and then you go up into theta, and then alpha and beta. And where most people live is in beta. And that's like 13, 15 hertz. That's the chattering monkey mind. When you come down into the 7.83 sort of alpha theta cusp, it's a place of very quiet mind. And I think that's what we all need more than anything, is to quiet our minds. I'm really seeing in the people that I'm working with that there's so much noise around the head, so much undisciplined thinking, so much stress and worry. And people really say, I have such a hard time quieting my mind. So this is a very low tech, very simple way to quiet your mind. And so you can't make a tuning fork that's 7.83 hertz. Okay. For one thing, it would be really long. It would be like 4 feet long. Like the lowest frequency fork they make is about 25 hertz, and it's a fork this long. It's very, very big, unwieldy fork. Okay. But our brain has this really curious thing that it does with what we call binaural beats. And if we play one frequency in one ear and another frequency in our other ear, your brain will actually entrain the vibrations it's creating to the difference between the two. Okay, so the difference between these two forks, so this one's 62.64 hertz, it's 7.83 times 8. So it's the eighth harmonic or overtone of the Schumann resonance. This one is 54.81. So this is 7.83 times 7. The difference between the two is 7.83 hertz. So because these are weighted forks and they're forks you don't hear, you're not going to necessarily hear them unless you have on headphones and they're turned up really loud. But tuning works, on the very first distance session I ever did, I had no open line of communication. We didn't have a phone. It was just intention. And I realized that it isn't the sound necessarily that's doing the trick. It's the fact that I am working on your hologram through the ether. And the sound affects you whether you hear it or not, which is kind of interesting, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna activate these forks, and I'm gonna hold them on either side. I'm not gonna do it yet, but I'm gonna hold them like on either side of my microphones here, maybe for about 30 seconds or so, until I really feel like I've got the collective brain entrained into this brainwave state. And what you should feel is just more calm and present, and maybe a little, like a sense of a little lighter inside. So should we give that a try, Alec?
Please do.
Okay. So what I want you to do to start is to just close your eyes and take a breath into your belly, and then exhale that breath down into the ground. And do 3 breaths like that. And while you're doing it, I want you to just kind of get a sense of your own baseline state. Like, how do you feel right now in this moment? Okay. And then I'm going to activate the forks. I'm just going to hold them to the mic. Keep your eyes closed, keeping just curious about what you're noticing. You might feel it anywhere in your body. You might not notice anything at all, okay? And there's no right or wrong here. And then when I feel like we've kind of gotten to where we want to go, I'll stop. It'll be under a minute, okay? All right, so let's go. The eyes closed, just paying attention to what you're noticing as we start to entrain your brain into this zone. Good. Okay, and then take another nice big breath into the belly. Exhale down into the ground. And then just check in again and see if you noticed anything. Alec, did you notice anything while we did that?
I did. I just sort of a trickling down relaxation and like sort of expansive grounding, like a fluid was flowing down and grounding.
Yeah. And see that took us a minute or less, of just listening, and we shifted state. Now I know there's a lot of technological devices that are coming out at the moment that purport, you wrap them around their head and they change your brain waves. But I'll tell you what, as somebody who works with people's electrical bodies, what I'm finding is that we're all really being impacted by the amount of man-made electromagnetic waves in our environment. A lot of us are on devices all of the time. We've got Wi-Fi on, we've got cell phone towers, we've got a lot of electromagnetic energy that is all carrying information. And it does impact our own electrical bodies. I think it's very hard to avoid. And so I think it's really important we figure out a way to adapt and overcome so that we can continue to thrive even in this heavily electromagnetically polluted environment. And I'll tell you that it is possible. Humans are very adaptive, we're very resilient. And if our own electrical signal is clear and strong and we're well grounded, then we can navigate it. But adding extra electrical things, like I'm not a really big fan of things like Fitbits or even Apple Watches because they interrupt our own electrical flow. And certainly, messing with your own brain waves with electricity is just adding more to the mix. Whereas you can do that in a super low-tech way without any extra electromagnetic fields, and it doesn't even take very long. In fact, I have two other forks as well that you hear, and the difference between them is 111 hertz. And that brings you up into I think it's the gamma brainwave of like super focus and productivity. So just pulling up those two forks and listening to them. In fact, many anechoic chambers that have been hollowed out that they found in different parts of the world resonate at 111 hertz, which is kind of interesting. So, we can induce that with a binaural beat with tuning forks as well and shift our state. And it's also, and the body loves the coherent input. So, so I'm a big fan of going low tech when it comes to things like sound healing.
Yes, thank you for that. Because a lot of those binaural things are, recordings, you need a stereo and headphones, and now there's all these apps that you put on your phone. Like, and those are great. I'm not putting any of that down, but just that natural organic sound source of the tuning forks is great. And before I lose the thought, it was actually a very cool little nugget of empowering wisdom implied in what you just did, in the sense that how quickly you can have positive effects. Because I think of the metaphor of sound shifting frequencies. You're shifting a radio dial, you just go click and you change the station fast. You don't have to grind the dial for an hour. The frequency just shifts, So thank you for that reminder that is an empowering tool that you can own and take through your day. You can retune yourself relatively quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And, I just want to point out that, if you're a musician, that pretty much every time you pick up your instrument, you have to tune it so that it sounds good. We all have cars. We all know that cars need tune-ups. Our human bodies are no different. Life is stressful. We take on wear and tear. And it's ridiculous for us to think that we're going to make beautiful music when we've never gotten tuned. We haven't attended to keeping ourselves in tune.
Yes. Yeah, ongoing throughout the day, just to make it your own and your empowered tool to surf and ride through the waves of the day. So those tuning fork sets that you just used, what were those called? Do you have a name for them?
These are the Schumann forks. So these are available at the Biofield Tuning Store. I created a whole line of forks. I've got a number of other ones and tuning fork accessories. These actually have little amplifier boots on the end that we call these a circuit boot, and they just screw on, and then you can apply them, and they really amplify. With a regular tuning fork, it's got a really narrow stem at the end, and poking you with that doesn't always feel good. But this creates a much bigger surface, and it's got little dimples in it so that the sound waves get trapped between the base of the dimple and the surface of the skin. So you get 16 additional little the sound pulses going on. You can use them, you can apply them to any tuning fork, but they're also just really great to, if you're sore somewhere, you've got a headache or your jaw is tight, or you just want to settle down and breathe and come into the moment. They also work really well on things like knots. They can really dig in and help release knots. So they're great for body workers and also for self-care.
And another one of your flagship, or maybe your flagship fork, is the Sonic Slider. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Sonic Slider, so these are the 7th and 8th multiples of the Schumann resonance. I actually had prototypes made of every single one. So 7.83 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I had everything made up to the 13th overtone. And the one that was far and away the most pleasing, the most useful, the most sort of like, this is like the frequency I've been looking for, is the 12th. And so that's 7.83 times 12, it's 93.96 hertz. And there's something about that frequency that's just very universally appealing. It's the first fork I had made with a very long handle. And so what the idea is that you activate the fork just like this, and then you slide the handle on yourself. So you slide like so. And what I discovered in sliding it all over my body was that it helped me to lose weight. It doesn't help everyone to lose weight. And I don't want to set people up with the expectation that they're going to lose weight, because weight's a complex issue. But for me, it caused me to lose 15 pounds in 5 weeks, because I was just holding water weight that was held in place by fascia knots. And this sliding vibration on the body, I came all out in bruises. My fascia released, and all of this excess fluid that I was holding just kind of let go. We also found that it tones muscles too. And it's not so different than like standing on a vibration plate. You know how we say that standing on a vibration plate can help tone muscles? When you input tone, you become toned. And so people are using it on their digestive tract. If you think of your digestive tone is weak, it adds energy. It helps to connect you to your muscles. A lot of people who've had trauma, who are disassociated from their bodies, the electrical wiring between the brain and say the abdominal muscles, or the, really any part of our body it's not there. Those muscles aren't firing because we're just not present. And so by applying this fundamental electrical frequency, because that's what it is, the Schumann is really it's the fundamental electric pulse of life on Earth. And so it's embedded in that multiple. And so it just wakes up the electricity in our own bodies and helps bring it into harmony with nature. And if you live in an urban environment, if you're on a lot of devices, you're not connected to that Schumann resonance. You're not being informed by it. And so it's a way to put the fundamental frequency of nature into our bodies. And it doesn't even take very long. People use it for 5 to 10 minutes a day and report all kinds of benefits from it. So that's another one. So we've got, these are the 7th and 8th harmonic, and then the 12th harmonic, which is the Sonic Slider. And those are all at the biofieldtuningstore.com.
That's outstanding. The sonic weight loss, sign me up for that. And I know you're not making any claims, but you just telling about your own experience, which works. Once again, results, trump theorizing. And you just said a website about, what is your main website? Is it biofieldtuning.com?
Yes, our main website is biofieldtuning.com, and you can learn about classes. So we now have a full online certification to learn biofield tuning in the comfort of your own home, wherever you are in the world. And, that was another thing I didn't think was possible. People said, can you teach this virtually? And I was like, no. And then 2020 happened, and I asked my team, I'm like, do you guys believe we can do this? And they said, let's give it a try. And so we started figuring out what teaching at a distance would look like, practicing with some friends and family, and discovered that we can teach at a distance, and actually put together a very comprehensive program with lots of videos that you can go back to again and again. And so classes are available. I've recorded a lot of audio sessions where I've worked with groups and then recorded that. So for all kinds of what ails you, so you can take a look at some of those recordings. And then we have a bunch of tuning forks and tuning fork accessories as well. And you can access all that through biofieldtuning.com. There's a link to the store right there. So.
And it's cool to offer that whole spectrum, because as we were doing a few moments ago, you have things available like the Sonic Slider that people can just get and just start doing self-help with and get those first experiences with sound, and then the more advanced level practitioner training. So it's good to have that whole gamut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one other thing before I forget, is I noticed another thing you've incorporated relatively recently is bringing more vocal toning work into your realm. How is bringing the voice work? Has that helped expand or shift or change anything that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, it's been really interesting. There's ultimately, Alec, there's a limited audience for tuning fork healing. There's a lot of people's first impression when they hear tuning fork, people's minds immediately go to pseudoscience, airy fairy, woo woo. It has a limitation. But I've learned so much about intention, about the science of how sound impacts us, and the magic that we can really do with sound. And so I became really interested. And years ago, back even when I was 20, I received very clear guidance that I needed to learn how to sing. The unfortunate thing was that I was hopelessly non-musical, came from a completely non-musical family, was the kid in music class clapping on the offbeat, singing off key, squeaking my clarinet, just like no gifts there at all. Or so I believed. And I actually, started on this path with music through my 20s. And when I was 27, I had a band, and that was where I was really interested in going, was down the music route, just because it's fun. It's so fun playing music together with people. It's just, I don't know anything that's really more fun than that for me. And then I got pregnant, and I became a mother, and I started working with tuning forks, and kind of got off on this whole path that I had not been planning on going down. But finally got it to a place with that journey where I felt ready to kind of circle back to the music. And now I had all of this understanding about the biofield, about sound, about all kinds of things. So coming back to the music. And I told some friends, I told some people that I was interested in taking everything I'd learned and sort of stealth embedding it in popular music, so that these songs that we were creating were medicine, but nobody would really know that they were medicine. They would just know that listening to that song made them feel good. But I had worked my sound healing magic into it. And through expressing that, I ended up being connected to two Australian brothers, Isaac and Torald Corin, who have their own journey, and now they are doing some stuff at the Shift Network. I think you interviewed them actually just last week, Alec. So I ended up signing up with them on a personal singer-songwriter journey, and they were going to help me to write songs and to get my voice to a place where I felt comfortable singing some songs. But what COVID happened, and that kind of interrupted the process. But we started collaborating together, and we created a whole body of work together, completely unintentionally. We found whenever we got together, there was sort of a synergy and a magic in the way that we worked. And we have produced a whole body of work that combines vocal toning. We discovered 24 sounds that when you make these different sounds, that they resonate in different parts of your body. And so just for an example, the sound of the heart, the front of the heart is ya. And so when you tone the sound ya, you can feel that energy actually moving through the heart. And so when you go through all these 24 tones, which we call the sonic anatomy, you're actually giving yourself sound therapy from the inside. And, we can absolutely use our voices to harm ourselves by speaking negatively to ourselves and others. And certainly so many people do that. But there's a reason why chanting and toning and singing and all these things have been traditions for so long, because they support our health from the inside. And so when you combine tuning with toning and the outside of the inside, you've got a kind of a complete picture for keeping yourself in tune. And so our body of work is Sing the Body Electric. We're going to, we've done virtual workshops, we do live workshops. And if you're interested in that, if anybody, and this is great for anybody, if you're a music teacher, if you're a sound healer, whatever, as a public speaker, this whole body of work in Sing the Body Electric will just get you more embodied and make your voice more empowered. So that's been a really fun thing to branch out into.
That's brilliant. And I think you nailed a key point, is while tuning forks and crystal bowls et al. Are all awesome, they're coming from outside, but the power of that vocal toning, the internal massage it's my bias, because that's what I've been involved with for a number of years. And it's very liberating to share that perspective that at the outset, this is not a musical practice. It's just working with pure energy via sound, via your own voice, but doesn't require being a singer or a accomplished musician. But yet,
no, not at all.
Yeah, go ahead.
But what I was going to say is that what we find, like when we've taken people through this virtual workshop, at the beginning they didn't feel they could sing. We have everybody sing happy birthday to themselves at the beginning, and then we go through all of these exercises and we have everybody sing happy birthday to themselves at the end, and everyone's like, wow, I'm a singer. Like, just like that. It's such a powerful way to just get you from here to there really fast. And it, I don't think there's anything more liberating, more empowering, or more enjoyable than loving playing with your own voice.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. Like I say, you don't have to be a musician to start, but in a sneaky way, once the gateways open a little bit, it can open up and inform all kinds of new musical expression and singing. And so that's the sneaky part of it. And it can be used in music without being overt about it. It's just energetically encoded on it. So that's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Is that program still available? I saw an online class you did. Is that still posted?
In this moment, we have one in person coming up September 17th through 19th at Esalen in California. But then in November, we're doing another virtual one. And then we're actually going to create a certification course in the sonic anatomy, because what we found is that in teaching people the sonic anatomy, that they want to go and teach it to their clients, to their students, and because it's so useful. It's just such a useful practice. So I think in January 2022, we're going to be offering a certification in the sonic anatomy, which is an incredibly fun and powerful practice. So, just keep an eye on my website or sign up for my newsletter, and you will be able to learn more about those things coming up.
Outstanding. Yeah, that and also the brothers Karen, their site. I did interview them last week, so you'll check their session out here elsewhere on this summit. And there's so many things to explore with the world of the voice and tuning forks and the vast, endless vibrations in the ether that we're all trying to tune into here.
Yeah.
So on that note, the clock is running out on us. So on that note, I might just have to say thank you for joining us today, Eileen.
Yeah, you bet, Alec. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for sharing. And yeah, everyone, thank you for listening once again. It's always appreciate having you with us, and invite you to come on back and join us for the next sessions here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit.